so sorry. We would like to call the Providence School Board meeting to order. Roll, clerk, would you please call the roll?
Tyrell Stevens.
Present.
Najee Manuel.
Present.
Melissa Hughes. Present. Andrew Newman. Present. Michelle Fox.
Present.
Corey Jones.
Present.
Mireya Mendoza. Present. Jenny Mercado. Heidi Silverio. Stephen Williamson.
Present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll be going to items 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will be moving to items 1.3, Superintendent comments. Superintendent.
Welcome, everyone. Is this on? Yeah. Okay. Welcome back. We're all excited for this week to begin our brand new school year. And so we thought we would start the superintendent's message with just a reminder of where we were last year and where we're starting out for this year. One of the opportunities to report on that we have not had yet is on access scores for multilingual learners. I would like to invite our MLL department to come in and dig deep into these. But in terms of what we have to share, our students are exceeding the TAP goals once again in access. We have reached around 44% of our students hitting their targets. So we're really excited. What this means in terms of what students know and are able to do are that they're able to engage in English speaking, listening, reading, and writing at the grade level. And so we're really excited to see these numbers. We have continued to exceed our original TAP goal of 41%, and so that's really excellent news. Last year, we began to implement the ART curriculum, which is our English language arts curriculum, a little bit differently. We moved away from using teacher-created decks to a more formalized process with fidelity to the curriculum. We've implemented pre, mid, and post-writing assessments for each of these areas. And what we're seeing in the data is that students are beginning to make gains on their writing assessments. We are in the process and have started over the course of last year and into the summer, training principals and assistant principals, and as well as interventionist coaches and teachers on lesson and unit internalization, which helps us to really dig deep into what a student needs to know and be able to do as part of their lessons. In the year ahead, we have added in a deep dive and a focus on universal design for learning. What this means, it means strategies that allow our students to access grade level Neon content through different representations and modalities so that we're reaching all learners. We are implementing structures and systems of support. We are engaging in continuous walkthroughs, and we have developed a portfolio of school system where each school has a transformation officer, but also representatives from the teaching and learning department and ML department and special education department that support the principals and their staff in meeting their goals. And we are engaged in some significant partners for professional learning. If you recall, in academics, we increased the number of 3-star schools last year from 19% to 33%. This actually increased the number of students from 2,397 to 4,520 who attend these schools that are 3 stars or higher. Our attendance rates are improving. We have, based on our internal data, either reached or exceeded our goals for decreasing chronic absenteeism. And what this means in terms of what students know and can be able to do is significant, because what we're seeing is that students who have reduced chronic absenteeism for 2 or more years are beginning to close learning gaps that they had because of chronic absenteeism. Our HQIM, our high quality instructional materials and high quality curriculum work, is showing that we are needing to work more and more on text-based writing. And so we're layering in that work this year. We are engaged in small group instruction, discourse, and interventions as well, so that we're ensuring that we're reaching all of our learners. This week was exciting. Our schools are engaged in their back-to-school bashes. I had an opportunity to visit several of the schools who have had theirs already. One of the events that I'd like to talk about was Messer and West Broadway. Eventually, when we have the opening of the new Messer, it will be one of our PK-8 schools. Principal Charles at that school took the opportunity at the bash to combine West Broadway and Messer students into one back-to-school bash. And what was really amazing to see were the older siblings helping the younger siblings as they were meeting their new teachers, getting their supplies, learning about the different school and the different programs. So it was really a kind of a line of sight into what PK-8 will be in the future. We had over 500 families attend that event. Tomorrow, we welcome our teachers back for the Teacher Orientation Day. And so we'll be engaged in professional learning around teaching and learning, but we'll also be engaged in reminders about our different protocols and processes that our teachers engage in each year. And then on the 27th, that is our actual first day back to school, and so we have some exciting things planned that day. Commissioner Angela Infante Green, Mayor Brett Smiley, the school board president Tyrell Stevens, and I will have an opportunity to visit 3 specific locations that are significant in terms of the work that they're engaged in for Providence. So we'll visit the Spaziano School, which will be our first PK-8 school site, and we'll have an opportunity to see how our new 6th graders are doing there as they're entering into their first year at the PK-8 setting. We'll be visiting Martin Luther King Elementary, which is our very first Blue Ribbon Elementary School, and so we're excited to see all of the students and staff arriving back at our Blue Ribbon School. And then we'll be visiting Alvarez. Alvarez is a redesigned school, and it's focused on financial systems and also on nursing and healthcare. One of the things to note about Alvarez is that for the first time this year, we have actually a waiting list of students who are interested in attending Alvarez, demonstrating its increased academic achievements that have happened since it entered into the redesigned program. So lots of exciting news to share, and all rooted in the gains that we're making for our students.
Thank you, Superintendent Gillen. I would like to entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Motion's been made by Chairman Higginbotham. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Vice President Newman. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. We are at items 3.0. Right before I get into this item, we have 2 of the candidates that, well, not candidates, they're actually in the role that is here on today. And I would love for both of you to just come up and introduce yourself to the board and let the board know what we're in fact able to expect within your new role. We have Gina, the Chief Talent Officer, and Dr. Moore, Junior Chief Operating Officer. Could you both come?
Well, good evening, everyone. I can just figure out it. I'm Gina, Chief Talent Officer. This is my 4th year in Providence and my 15th year actually in HR within urban education. So I am delighted, to say the least, to be in this position and to continue serving Providence in this way. It has been a busy summer, as you've heard Paul share. We've been hiring, onboarding, recruiting for many months and just preparing for the start, and really excited to see just where things have come. And we have a lot of really great pipeline recruitment programs that we'll continue to work on with international educators, substitutes throughout the year. So just really looking forward to this opportunity and to being here with all of you. So thank you.
Good evening, board. It's good to meet you all. Dexter Moore Jr., Chief Operating Officer. My family and I relocated from Oakland, California about a month ago, where I was serving as a chief of staff in Oakland Unified School District. I worked in the district for 4 years. I've worked in urban districts all around the country, Boston, Miami, Detroit, and my hometown, Oakland. So my family and I relocated here. We're really excited to be in Providence. I'm really excited to serve in this role. I think in particular, not only I find it a privilege and an honor to be in this position, but I also think it's a really unique and exciting time to be leading in the city of Providence and in our schools. And so I'm excited to roll up my sleeves and work alongside my colleagues and the board and community to continue to make the progress that Dr. Dillon talked about. So really happy to be here. Looking forward to learning more about the work that each of you lead in the coming future.
Absolutely. Listen, congratulations to you and thank you for, in fact, moving here and taking on that role. We definitely do appreciate it. And thank you, Gina, for continuing your service here with Providence. It ain't easy, but you've been here long enough, so we want to just congratulate the both of you and thank you both for coming on tonight. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved by Board Member Hughes. Do I have a second? Second been made by Dr. Williamson. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We will be going to items 4.1. I am going to go and turn this part over to the school board's legal counsel for further discussion. Do we have, who do we have, how many, just one?
Can you hear me? No. I don't think it has a.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Do we have public comments
Yes.
lined up? Okay. We have one? Okay. Is it, who is the public comment?
On the one.
Okay. Is Mr. Levon, are you here?
We're
Hi, thank you. I have reviewed the public comment or the comment that you submitted in writing to the school board, and I would ask that you submit this comment directly to the superintendent, the acting superintendent, Dr. Dillon. It is really a form of a complaint that identifies particular staff members, makes allegations about staff members. It also includes identifying detail about students and misconduct by students. And I am being protective of the confidentiality laws that obligate the school district to ensure that there is not disclosure, particularly of student identifying information, but frankly also of staff. This is not in any way to limit your rights to do whatever legally you intend to do, and I encourage you to do so. And I also encourage you to make an appointment. You can meet with Dr. Dillon and the staff, and they welcome the conversation to address the concerns which are specific and personal to your employment as a member of the school community. So I'm going to direct the client, that is the board, not to take this particular public comment.
Thank you, Dr. Dillon. So we will move on with public comment on tonight. We will go to school board member comment. And I would like to begin today by expressing my gratitude to Dr. Dillon for stepping into the role as the acting superintendent. That is no small task. And yet you've done it with steadiness, accountability, and clarity. You've led the district forward. You led the charge to open up our schools, and you've done an amazing job. You've done it with grace. So would like to definitely congratulate you. You know, one of the main things that I have seen was I got some good feedback from board members about your leadership. So I definitely want to acknowledge that as well and say thank you for your service and stepping into this role while our superintendent is out.
Thank you, President Stevens. I appreciate it. And I am here for the community and for the students and families. So I appreciate that you feel that I'm moving in the correct direction for everyone.
Yes, thank you. Also, really quick, I want to acknowledge our board clerk, Martha. You know, Martha's been doing an amazing job making sure the board has the resources needed. As you may see, we have these new cameras. One is in the back of us, and then there's one in the back of the room. We will in fact have a new live streaming system, all in the hands of Miss Martha. So we definitely want to thank you for making the public more accessible to the school board. And when families aren't able to come and they have to stream, they will in fact have the accessibility needed to hear the board and be able to sort of understand what's going on in their community. So I want to thank you for that. And there's going to be a couple of more upgrades in September, so it's more accessible to the public. So thank you, Martha. Okay, now I do want to get through my public comment. I do have a couple of things, really quick school board member comments. I want to start with community listening sessions. I'll be honest with you, I am proud. I'm proud of this board for showing up, for rolling up your sleeves, and for doing the hard work. As we all know, we had challenges. We had some mistakes, of course, but together we facilitated, listened, and welcomed families, and we tried our hardest to build trust. And that's all that matters. I want to thank the PPSD team and your continued support, Karina in the FACE office, Suzanne and the communications team. I also want to thank Mayor Smiley and his team for their partnership, whether that was with funding, childcare, food, or staff on the ground. That kind of collaboration between City Hall and the board is going to be required and important as we are heading toward the return to local control. I also want to especially lift up Vice President Newman and Secretary Fonts. You poured yourselves into this work. You gave your time, your energy, even moments with your families, so that our community's voice can be heard. And because of your leadership, the Council of Great City Schools have asked the both of you to host on a national scale to showcase what we have done here in Providence. So I want to just say thank you both for just leading the charge throughout these community listening sessions as well. And taking a load off me, I appreciate that. Along the way, we've had powerful moments. Board Member Hughes, your police session brought families together across cultures and different languages. So I just want to say thank you. That session really stood out to me out of all of them. Chairman Mahigabo, the turnout at the Refugee Dream Center, and that session was just strong. There was a lot of people in the hallway waiting to get in. There wasn't even enough room, but we want to acknowledge that. Chairman Jones, you pushed the word out, you promoted, you had videos, media outreach, and you helped lead the charge at the AS 220 session that brought youth directly into the conversation. Chairwoman Severio's not here, but I just want to acknowledge her. She made sure that our teachers was at the table, working side by side with the union. Dr. Williamson, you led 2 sessions back to back, straight off the road, no sleep. That's called dedication. Board Member Mendoza, you rolled up your sleeves at the Smith Hill Library, making families feel welcomed, cared for. And anytime we had a session and you was there and we all walked through the door, you made it feel like home. So I want to thank you for that as well. Board Member Mikado's not here, but she stepped in. I seen something in her that I did not know she had, taking the lead. Like, that's just amazing what she did. She led, she promoted, she encouraged people even on Saturday to come into the rec center where we had our final session at. And just amazing. Each of you made a difference and each of you should be proud of yourselves. So just please give yourselves a round of applause. So where do we go from here? Tonight, we will review this process a little bit more in detail. We presented a presentation. We're not going to take up too much of your time through the presentation. But I will say by November, we will have met about 92% of the commissioner's framework, which I'll talk a little bit about today. We will reach that milestone by November, but it's going to take us continuing to roll up our sleeves for return to local control. But despite that, the board is moving in the right direction in my eyes. And if you was to ask me today and say, Tyrell, is the school board ready for return to local control? I would say not just yet. But if you was to ask me, is the school board on track for a June 30th, 2026 return? I would say yes, indeed. And that is big. And I would say as the longest serving member on the board, I know that there's challenges. There's always going to be challenges. 6 of you in your first year, 2 of you in your second year, 1 in fourth, and I'm stepping into my fifth. Mistakes will happen, and too often our critics don't give us much grace. I was 19, and things that I did at 19, folks still hold me accountable for at 24. So I'm still young. I'm the youngest, and I'm happy about that. So, but it's not about that. There's one key lesson. You just have to silence the noise and keep moving forward, and that's something that this board has done. And I just want to thank each of you for that and for your hard work and for your dedication. And I will say one thing, one of the main things that has taken place was, and I said this when I had taken on the role as president, is that I just felt as if the school board did not have its voice. And I will say, I think that the board is beginning to really develop its voice and understanding its role. Its role is not to really get involved in the administrative side, but to really be, student outcome focused in on governance, and we're doing an amazing job there. So, let's just keep on staying laser focused and limit the distractions. Lastly, I would just say Wednesday marks the first day of school. As Dr. Dillon had said, we will be at some locations. The commissioner, the mayor, Dr. Dillon, and I, we do welcome board members to join us. I sent it in an email where we will all be at. So I want us all to set the tone of just being out in the community on the first day, if you can, because some have kids, so I understand that. But I know Board Member Hughes reached out, said she'll join, Chairman Mahable, Secretary Fonsa will join. So if you have the time to come to one of the locations, please try to get there. And also, let's just remind families that attendance does matter. That's something that the governor is pushing, saying attendance matters, something the commissioner is pushing, and we want to set the tone on the first day of school, letting families know that attendance does matter. So even if you can't make it, try to spread the word, post it on social media, and just encourage the public to come out. All right. But listen, thank you all. Thank you for your hard work, dedication. Thank you, Sarah, for your hard work and dedication. We're starting a new school year. This is the first time a lot of you are entering a new school year. So it's going to be amazing, and can't wait to get to work with each of you. Is there any other school board member comments on today? Vice President Newman and then Board Member Hughes.
You know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna shout you out because you don't get to, you ain't gonna shout yourself out. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And also, it wouldn't be possible without your leadership. You are really just president aside, you're just one of the best people I know. And you're such a great leader. And I love how you lead because you just you make space for people to talk. You ask a lot of questions. Go find information, you do the background work in between meetings so that you come back with answers, with clarity. You actually follow up in a timely fashion, and you give people their flowers and you show up. And you're 24 years old, but like I said, I know Secretary Fonts, from the beginning, we got to work with Tyrell when he was on the Intruders, the football team on the West End. Me and Secretary Fonts are both former team moms of the Intruders. And from then, you know what I mean? You just demonstrated leadership that we followed you here. You know what I mean? Because of your leadership, you being, a whole decade younger than us and all, a whole decade younger. You may be 24 years old, but you are one of the wisest people I know. And so I just wanted to say thank you, President Stevens, because really you made this year what it is so far. So thank you.
Thank you. I will be brief. I want to echo everything that's been said around the community listening sessions. I think they've been phenomenal. I do want to mention that we had one session that needed to get rescheduled, so we're not done yet. We have one more coming up. I believe it is Thursday, September 4th at 6 p.m. at Spaziano Elementary, and we invite anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to participate this summer, particularly families and community members, students, parents, please come and join us that evening to share your thoughts. And I'm sure that there will be additional communications coming from PPSD as a reminder. That said, I just wanted to also echo the flowers and shout out to the PPSD team. This fall marks my family's 13th consecutive year in PPSD. And we received a back to school message yesterday with tons of important information and links and just some positive info for us to really get our year off to a great start. And I know there's always room for improvement in the way that the district and the board engages with folks, but I'm proud to see that on both counts we're moving in the right direction. That being said, there's a couple of other things coming up that I want to note for folks that might be interested. Tomorrow evening is a meeting of the school building committee at 4 p.m. here in this building in the basement tech room. We'll be talking about all of the capital plans and construction projects. We have quite a few going on. Wishing best of luck to our entire community. We now will have, I believe, 7 different construction projects going on across the district at the same time. This is a Herculean effort requiring a lot of energy and attention from lots of folks. Really excited that we have a new chief operating officer to help support some of that work. And so please join us for that. And to President Stevens' point, the collaborative working group that of the school board, district, city council, city officials, and RIDE will be reconvening after a brief summer hiatus. We'll be reconvening also September 4th. Finally, I had the opportunity to attend a couple of, in addition to listening sessions, a couple of community engagement sessions around certain of the construction projects, as well as just prior to right now with Board Member Jones, one of the back to school events. And it was such a joy to see families, admins, teachers, and community members coming together and celebrating. I think we are setting ourselves up for success this year. There is a lot of enthusiasm, and I wish every person working here, every person working in every building, but particularly families, and most importantly, as always, our students, the very best school year 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Hughes. Any other public comment? There being none, we will move to items 6.0 presentations. We are going to start with 6.1, which is the community listening sessions update. Right after, we will get into the TAP update and then summer learning update. We will hand it over to Vice President Newman.
Check, 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 mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2, cool. Are we able to get that on the screen? Oh, there it is. That looks cute. That looks so cute. We pay a lot of attention to aesthetics on the school board. It absolutely matters to us, so that's cute. Yeah, we'll definitely keep it brief, but just wanted to give some more insight as to how the community listening sessions have been going. They've been really fun, y'all. I don't know about y'all, but it's been the highlight of my summer. We can go to page 2. So real quick, I want to just, I think I know most folks here, but I'm Angel, Vice President of the school board. Happy to be here. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. And congratulations to our 2 folks who are in the new roles. Really excited to have you all. Want to give just a quick overview of like who we are, what we do, how we find ourselves in this situation with creating listening sessions and like why. This first bullet, who's the PPSD board, actually came from a community listening session this Saturday at West End. I was walking around listening to some folks and I was talking to my partner and he's like, you know, when y'all start these sessions, y'all kind of have to tell people like what the board even does. And I said, what do you mean by that? He's like, there were people at the table who was like, this all sounds fun, but like, what do they even do? Who are these people? And I was like, word. Like, I really, like, honestly, that's an oversight. Like, really, I just assume that people just know what a board is. And so I figured it was fitting tonight to start off with, like, what is even a board? What do we even do? So just a couple of high-level things. School boards set local policies, oversee budgets, hire the superintendent, In Providence, since the state takeover, many of those decision-making powers rest with RIDE, and we are mostly in an advisory capacity, although we do hold a lot of influence and power and take that very seriously and to take these jobs serious. We also, I think most importantly, are meant to be a mirror of community, right? So we're in these roles really to be conduits of community's vision, voice, values, dreams. And it's our job to know what our communities need and want, so that way, when we get up here on these microphones, we can speak to that. It's really not about our personal opinions. It's actually not. It's really about the neighborhoods and the communities and the schools that we're coming from, the folks who we're connecting with, and making sure that that information gets elevated and that we're working and thinking and making decisions in their best interest. We're also, around accountability and reviewing policy. We act as a body that is here to like hold folks accountable and make sure that there's a level of transparency within our district. And also that we become like a connector. I think about us like a glue between the city and between the state and the different entities who all have a stake in making sure that our children are educated and having fun while doing that. So just a little bit about who we are. It is a kind of funky time being in state takeover. I think we're all, myself included, sometimes asking ourselves the same questions, like what is our actual power? Given the state takeover, what will it be when the schools come back? One thing we know for sure, we are here to make sure that we're representing the hopes and dreams of the community and that we're staying student outcomes focused. Council of Great City Schools, so they're a vendor, a national vendor that we started working with in January at the direction and suggestion really of RIDE. The school board's new. We're a new school board. We're half hybrid. We're hybrid, meaning half elected, half appointed by the mayor. It's our first time all really working together, and we need some professional development. So RIDE suggested the Council of Great City Schools as really a vendor that has some serious experience, not only working with districts like ours, but specifically districts that are in takeover status. Honestly, working with them since January has been like a blessing. I've learned so much. I know we've learned so much. The technical assistance that they give is just tremendous. Big shout out to AJ and Cindy if you're watching this, probably not, but we love you, because you really give practical advice and training that has helped us get to this point, including their design of community listening sessions. So while we can definitely take some flowers for that design, we're really taking what they already have implemented all over the country, and we're adding our sazon on it a little bit. You know what I mean? Community listening sessions are meant to be sort of like us, the board reaching into community, all aspects of our community, to hear from students, from families, from community leaders, teachers, residents about what they want our students to be able to know and do by the time they graduate from our district. And so we've done about 17 different sessions. Secretary Fonts will talk more about those. We've done about 17 different sessions between the months of the end of July and really through August to really go and ask those questions. What should students be able to know and do by the time they graduate from Providence Public Schools? And we provide food, we provide childcare, we try to meet folks where they're at. Again, Secretary Fox will talk a little bit more. And what are we gonna do with all this information? We're actually gonna take all this information. We've all been trained through the Council of Great City Schools to take notes that are ethical, that are not our interpretations as board members, but are the words verbatim that came from our community listening sessions. We're gonna work with AJ and Cindy from the council to synthesize everything we heard and to distill that into themes that will then be translated into 3 to 5 goals and guardrails that will become the bedrock of the transition plan that will really help us get our schools back, right? Hopefully in June 2026. But they will inform the strategic plan for the next 5 years. If we go to the next slide, we can actually take a look, I think, at the timeline. It's next. Yeah. Oh, not yet. Just wanted to do a couple shout outs around some of the values that we as a board brought into this process. So again, the council has their own process with community listening sessions, but for us as a team, we know that there's a few values and considerations that we wanted to be front and center with our approach to even how we design the sessions to begin with. So collaboration has been key, not only with the district and RIDE, in the city, but also with community leaders. The board leadership group, pretty early on into our role, started meeting with different community stakeholders and folks who have been in these communities, who have been, in the streets, making change happen, organizing and asking them what they think the board should be doing. You know what I mean? Like what these sessions should consist of. What do they need to provide? How do we need to talk about them? What does the look and feel need to be? We've consulted with our community before we even started designing these sessions. Accountability, right? We want to make sure that, particularly by talking to community leaders and having our, feet and boots on the ground on a daily basis, that we have such a connection with community that people, if we're not doing our job or we're kind of messing up, that people can call our phone, hit our social media, email us and let us know that, you guys said you were going to go about it this way and you actually didn't. We've had some hiccups along the way too, and it's great that we have such a good connection with our community, particularly community leaders, where they can hold us accountable. We can have a conversation and figure out what we need to do differently going forward, right? Transparency, we've really tried hard, and again, Secretary Fox will talk more about this, but our social media campaign and the way that we are talking about these sessions, really trying to be transparent about our timeline, what we intend to do with the data, our plans for feedback, and more. Accessibility, wanting to make sure that these sessions reach every corner of our city and in places where families and students go naturally, and so that we're not forcing them into spaces that have been historically uncomfortable or even harmful to them. And then last but not least, listening. We're really in these sessions to listen to people, not to get up and talk about what we think or to try to push an agenda. It's really about listening to the folks who show up, taking that information and then using it to craft these 3 to 5 goals and guardrails. Next slide, please. I think this is the timeline. Wow, that airplane came on. So timeline. Yeah, that is candle. Really quickly, so May and June, we started to design the community listening sessions. This is when we as a board started meeting together to talk about the look and feel. We got some training from AJ and Cindy from the council, and we began convening community leaders to get their input. June and July was really about community outreach and promoting the sessions, really working with PPSD and RIDE and the city to use their channels to get to students and families using what we know best, Instagram, Facebook, social media, TikTok trends, to try to get information out and get people just excited. July, I can't see that because there's a plane literally in front of it. July and August, that's when the listening sessions began. And yeah, we started July 28th. And really, we did 17 sessions between July 28th and Saturday, which is kind of wild to me. Upcoming September. So we'll talk more about September at the end of this presentation, but by the end of September, the idea is to have, and plan is to have another meeting with the Council of Great City Schools to bring all the notes and the data from the 17 sessions, to synthesize that and distill it into 3 to 5 goals and guardrails. In October and November, we'll be bringing that information back to the community to say, did we get it right? Does this sound like what y'all said? Does it make sense? Oh, it doesn't. Let's go back and remix that. And also to make sure that we bring the district into that conversation to see what they say, if they have any feedback. And then by November and December, the idea is to adopt goals and guardrails so that way the district can use it as the bedrock of their transition plan for local control. So that's sort of where we're at, where we've been. We're sliding some things around, but feel really good about this timeline and feel committed and ready to get to December with something solid that we can hand to the district. So with that said, I'll pass it over to Secretary Fonts to talk more about listening sessions themselves.
Thank you, Vice President Newman. Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle Fonts. I'm the Secretary of the School Board. Congratulations and welcome to the team, y'all. Welcome to Rhode Island. I hope you ate at some good spots this summer. So as Vice President Newman said, these sessions were very intentional from the start. Everything we did, how they were structured, literally from beginning to end, was very intentional. We started with the implicit bias training to teach us how to take notes from community so that we are not interpreting what people are saying, but we're actually recording exactly what community wants. In that same training session, we came up with this timeline that you see here as a whole board, along with Bride's kind of guidance on when we should kind of get this stuff done. Also in that training, we as a board came up with places in our regions that we wanted to host these sessions. So we were intentional about trying to have an equal amount in each region. We have 5 regions in our district, and so we were very intentional about choosing locations, as Vice President Newman said, that makes sense to our community. You can put the next slide. There's not words. We're picture people. And so these are the sessions. If you look up here, we have 5 libraries. Our libraries are actually really, our community utilizes our libraries a lot. So we have 5 libraries. We were in 2 schools. We had 2 Zooms. One was a safe space Zoom where we had families who may not feel comfortable, immigrant families who didn't want to come out to locations but could still contribute in that way, and then also a PTU Zoom with the teachers. We were in 4 recreation centers, and then also 3 youth organizations or educational organizations around the city. You can go to the next slide. After that training with the CGCS for implicit bias, as also VP said, we consulted community members. And you see here, these are different sessions, and it the joy just looking at it just makes me so happy. But we consulted community and we're like, okay, this is what we came up with. This is our timeline. How do we make this work? How do we make it happen in a way that feels authentic, real, and also engaging? And in that session, we came up with needing food, access to childcare, access to wheelchair accessible spaces. Literally a list of things. Music was one of the things. Our community thrives on being able to share a plate and share a dance. And so once we did that, we started outreach and scheduling with these locations. Hey, could you be a host? Would you mind hosting the school board? How do you guys feel about that? So those emails went out. After the outreach and the scheduling was done, we started to work with the district and the city to figure out what resources they could help us with. So printing materials, interpretation and translation. The mayor's office, shout out to them. They gave us a nice stipend for food and snacks to make sure our sessions had the things people needed. A lot of our sessions were in the evening where families need a cooked dinner at that time or need to have a snack right after coming from work. And so that was a huge resource for us that we were super grateful for. So once we solidified those resources, that's when our artistic director started coming up with the vision of what these look like. If you look at our host flyers, our social media, the aesthetic is the same from beginning to end. The same font, the same colors, the same aesthetic, in a way to make this ours and to make it communities and make it feel like home. And so then we came up with the name as a board. We had a special meeting where we decided on the People's Plan, a roadmap to student excellence. And then we went up from there. So we have a social media page. Our social media page is at the People's Plan campaign. On that page is where we uploaded all of our information, how the session is going to be structured, definitions that community might need before they come to a session so they understand what they're getting into, what we're talking about, the language we're using. Our community host flyers are on there. Our ways of being, we came up as a board, ways of being that we want people to kind of, how they should engage in our sessions and with each other while they're at our sessions. That's one of the things that we kind of are foundational on, because that brings respect and that brings trust and people feel safe that way. After that, we came up with a checklist for the locations that we kind of asked to host us. And each board member by twos went to these locations and went through that checklist. Do they have wheelchair accessibility? Do they have bathrooms? Where are the bathrooms located? Is it on a bus route? What bus route is it on? Do they have a space where childcare can be held? Can we have food in there? So there was a literally 3-page checklist that board members were expected to go and did very graciously with help from the city, with most of them, and ride from some of them. But they went through that checklist and made sure our community could feel safe where we were going. After that checklist, we had a very intentional training on how to do a land acknowledgement. What is a land acknowledgement? Shout out to Professor Raymond Two Hawks. He came via Zoom and gave our board a very, very informative workshop on what a land acknowledgement is and helped us write our own. So the board created our own land acknowledgement to be able to use at these sessions. Another way of a belonging practice to make sure we're showing respect and making people feel welcomed and not just included. I got this from Globe in our anti-racist training where he said, we don't want to be included, but we want to be expansive. We don't want to fit people into a box. We want to expand our box to fit people in it. Shout out to Globe for that. After that, Corey Jones actually led us with our marketing and how we should be marketing, how we should be uploading our information and getting it out there. Like VP Newman said, we used TikTok trends, we used the aesthetic that she came up with, language, he laid out language that we all use so that it's the same across the board and consistent. All things that we have learned work to help promote and get people engaged. After that, we sent out community hosts. So each session, the board members were.
Next slide.
I know, sorry. So each session on this slide, you can see Lon Ray. We had a session at Zuklo where we had 2 student organizers, 2 student leaders who led us. Miss Nerva is right there. She's the executive director of City Year, another community-based organization that does a lot of work with our youth. Janie Rodriguez, who is the executive director of Stop the Wait RI. And then we have Miss Angie down here with the Delta Sisters who led our session at eCube Academy. But these hosts were chosen not just like for who they are, but like who they are in community and what they've done and how they've impacted young people around the city. The hosts were really, one, bring your tribe. Who are you close to? Who you can get out to these sessions? But we historically know there's harm between the school district and the community. And so these hosts were kind of like a Band-Aid, a bridge, a safe space to say, like, you can trust these people and you can trust that you can bring your authentic voice. And so our hosts, a shout out to all of them. They were so amazing, like from the beginning to the end, and they were responsive to emails. They came in with a energy and a joy for this work and for and support for us as a new board. And just super grateful for them. Erin Papa will be the last one at Spaziano, happening on the 4th. But yes, our community hosts were dope. Aside from that, the last thing is we've been archiving everything. Like you can look at our website that Suzanne from the district put together for us. On that website, we will be uploading all of our notes from our session so you can see exactly how we pulled our goals in an effort to be transparent. So people can look up the notes. They'll see our timeline, literally beginning to end. All of the documents that we created together and with community are on our website. Yeah, we had an average of 20 to 25 participants, depending on where the locations were hosted. And in that information, we realized that the people who came out were mostly community leaders, teachers, and a couple parents. As a board, we have 22,000 students in our district, 22,000 students. And this is new for us, so 25 participants feels like, yay, that's great. And there's more listening that probably needs to be done. And we understand that. And I think from here, I can pass it to President Stevens to kind of speak to that.
Thank you, Secretary Fonts. Yes, next slide. As we begin to propose some next steps, I will say one of the things I was talking to Vice President Newman and Secretary Fonts about is that we are a part of the collaborative working group for RIDE. And one of my main things is like, we want to sort of stay on track. And then it was like, well, we need to listen to more community. But kind of, it worked against me either way because the Council of Great City Schools is not able to come until October 4th to condense and, condense the information and work with the school board. I don't even know if I'm using the words right. But yes, but to sort of look over the information and establish some drafted goals and guardrails. So October 4th, they will actually be coming. So since that's the case, I am recommending to the board that we try to extend our listening sessions, not in the way of how we did it before, but try to partner with, and this is going to take some collaboration with Dr. Dillon and your team, but trying to sort of work with DWAC, PTOs, the respect programs, maybe PAC. I think is the PUYAC?
Oh, yeah.
PIAC.
Yeah.
Oh, is that something different?
Yeah, that's the Providence Youth Arts Club.
Oh, I'm so sorry. But working, trying to sort of do it in a more strategic way. We know, I don't know if there's going to be a respect conference, but I know Dr. Onye typically does that and has a lot of youth input there as well. So that was something that Vice President Newman had brought up. But I think there's an opportunity, since we have to wait until October 4th, to be a little bit more creative, not in the ways of how we just did it, but try to be a little bit more creative and get more outreach, going out to different organizations. I want to go directly to Arise and PSU and go and get their feedback. Having the board be a little bit more active in this process would be good. This is just a recommendation. We hope that we get the board to support it. We have a couple more weeks. We really do need some more feedback. As they said, we haven't really got the participation we were expecting, but we kind of expected it. It was summer vacation. If someone would have told me while I was in school that there was a community listening session and the school board was hosting, I would be like, absolutely not. I'm not going. But I do believe that this is an opportunity for some of the families. I know actually Board Member Hughes and I were at the Neighborhood Association for Broadway. And one of the things that the parents said was that parents are just not engaged, but they are typically more engaged once school starts back up. And I think that it's going to be important that we do sort of take this time to outreach to communities. As Dr. Dillon said, we had a lot of participation at, I think it was over, from what I've heard, over 500 families at the Asa Mesa and West Broadway building Principal Cassandra had hosted. So I think that, we just sort of need to be able to take some of these opportunities to try to outreach to families. And I think we need to set a goal for the amount of outreach individuals that we want to reach out to, community people we want to reach out to. So that's a discussion I want to have. I don't want to have it too long because I want to get into the TAP updates, but I will mention this one thing as it pertains to this. This is actually part of the commissioner's framework, is that the school board works with DWAC, works with just the community and the PAC, making sure that we're able to establish goals and guardrails. So this is part of the timeline and part of the process. And I think that we can take this opportunity to really dive in deeper to get community input. And I had submitted to all of you, and it's on the website as well, a report. And that just sort of has some of the representatives, after speaking with Dr. Dillon, that the school board will sort of be a part of. So some organizations that the board will be a part of. But I do want to take this time to have a conversation with each of you. But right before we do that, am I missing anything that you want to add before the board jumps into discussion?
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for sitting through that. Hopefully it sounded as exciting as it was, because we're amped. We're like, whoa, this was like, it was a lot of work, but it was like a lot of fun. Just getting to hear what people want from us and from our district, it was so inspiring. Even in the conversations where it might have just been a table or two of people, it was beautiful. I wanted just to shout out that really inspired number 3 on the proposed next steps is we are thinking that there are ways that we've seen our city, implement before. I know the ACT, Arts, Culture, and Tourism created a cultural plan. I don't know if it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I can't remember at this point. But there was, to get community input around what we want arts and culture to be in our city, they got community hosts to have like dinner parties, right? And have like living room conversations that were like small and intimate and beautiful. And so we were thinking maybe that's something that we can do. Like what would it look like to get our community host? And by the way, that wasn't all of them. That's just who we could fit on that page. I'm gonna fix that before we put it online. Absolutely. But like, what would it look like to get our community hosts to maybe like stipend them, you know what I mean? Some money so they can like have an intimate conversation with their own families, you know what I mean? And bring like 10, 12 people into their homes, or other folks within even our district who would be excited to bring people into their backyards, their homes, or wherever they call home. It could be a park, right? And ask those 6 questions that we've been asking at our community design sessions. We also, it's not represented up here, but myself and Mish, we were talking, we're like, what would it look like again, as avid football fans and team parents, we're like, we could get out there with a microphone and interview parents at football games. Like, I know I was just at a Cowboys game, you know, and that's where all the Providence parents are. Like, we're in the community, we know them, we talk to them. It's just about, I think, maybe us a little, like, giving ourselves a little bit permission to break out of the mold a little bit that the council gave us, which is the mold and the bedrock. And we also know how to get to our community. We know, my own family doesn't really want to come and sit down for 2 hours and talk about the future of PQC. But right, you know what I'm saying? I told them we had Carolinas. They're like, all right, bet, we'll show up. But if we show up with a microphone at a football game at the Intruders, Cowboys, or wherever, and we're like, hey, can we ask you like a couple of questions, same questions, and record it? We could get more data in those ways. So anyways, just wanted to,
And there's no need to sit around until October 4th and do nothing. And I know you guys have been putting in a lot of work the past couple of months, and I do appreciate that. But I'm hoping that we can just roll up our sleeves for one more month and, you know, try to really get some families and students and just community individuals involved a little bit more. So
Before you give it to them, just one last thing. 2 of the things that the council gave us was community engagement sessions and community outreach. What we did this summer was mostly engagement sessions. So outreach is when we go to an organization who already has their people there and we just kind of talk that way. So that's kind of what we're kind of looking at now. So it's not going to be as much work from beginning to end of setting stuff up, but we're kind of just showing up like, hey, we're here, we want to have a conversation. So just know it's not going to be as much work as the engagement sessions. It will be less work as far as setup, but more work as far as just extending it a month. So just want to make that clarification.
absolutely. Dr. Williamson?
So I think the first thing we might do is look at some of the community events that we decided not to do because they were happening too late. So there's Guatemalan Festival coming up. I think that might be a good event to do. I know there's got to be other events that are coming up if we're going to do that. I think that does make sense. I think the timeline is way too short for us to try to plan events. The other thing I would say is that this is also probably a good opportunity to really push the survey, because does not require a lot of effort on our part. It's already out there. It's already available. Just be out in public and try to get as many people as possible to complete that as well. And then the last point I would like to make is that, typically if we were doing if we were collecting, quantitative data, if we're like something we're going to try to do statistical analysis on, typically there's a number you want to hit. You want to have 1,000 or more, people to have a viable sample size. That's really not the way and what we're collecting is really qualitative data, and we're asking open-ended questions. So I don't think there is a minimum number we need to hit to have validity, and I would maybe discourage us from setting a number, because I feel like if we say, okay, we've got feedback between surveys, and just off the top of my head, we say between surveys and participants, we have 250 people's feedback right now, and over the next month we say we want to reach 600, and we reach 400 instead. There's going to be people who will say, well, then you really didn't, you really didn't do it right. You really didn't get, because there is no right or wrong when it comes to qualitative data. Like if you get input from 2 people, that is worth looking at. That is worth thinking about. It's maybe not representative, and we would like to have as many people as possible. I think the number, we should get as much as possible, but I would shy away from setting a number, because I feel like that's inevitably going to be arbitrary. So
Sounds good. Chairman Jones?
Yeah, just to echo a little bit of what Dr. Williams said, I think if we come up with we had some really great handouts, get something like that with like a QR code that's like
you missed, one of the community listening sessions, but you can still have time to, fill out the survey. I say we, do something like that, and then we can go to people in person. We can go to, like the event that me and Melissa Hughes just went to. That would have been a perfect place to hand out little surveys to all the different parents. And even we can even go to doors. We could even, drop them on people's doors where they have yard signs for the schools that the kids go to, right? So I think it never hurts to do more. And like Dr. Williams was saying, that we can just use those surveys and kind of get those out and let people know that, this is the last opportunity to put in their feedback.
Woman Hughes?
Those are all great suggestions. Thank you, board leadership, for putting together this update and this presentation. Really thoughtful reflections on all the work that we've done so far. A couple of suggestions I may add. I think in President Stevens referenced a memo that he shared with the board, and I believe it's also posted online for the public who's watching. So we're going to have board members that are assigned specifically as representatives to the Parent Advisory Council, the District-wide Advisory Council, and the Equity Advisory Council. Those are 3 internal to PPSD engagement groups. So one suggestion, and I think some of that's reflected in this presentation, but I would recommend as those board members begin to or continue to engage with those entities, to check in with them to see what is their preference or how would they like to engage on this. I know that we have had members of all of those councils have attended, 1 or more sessions, but just checking in with them as they get going in September. Is there a particular meeting or session or communication that they plan to send out within those distribution lists to ask them, do they want the survey only, or would they be willing to have board members come and give, even maybe it's not the full presentation, maybe it's just sort of an introduction to the questions in the survey. And I'm happy to help with that if that is helpful. That said, I want to respectfully suggest that we be careful about just showing up at community events or school-based events without first checking in with the leaders in that environment. Even though our intent is good, I know that there's so much, watching some of these back to school events, there's so much intention and work that goes in from our school-based leaders, from parent leaders, other PTOs. And so just maybe that same suggestion at that scale. And so maybe, we can certainly do it any number of ways. Maybe it's board leadership, maybe it's the region members for schools reaching out to their school communities and saying, like maybe Corey and I go back to Martin Gregorian where we were today and we say, hey, we loved being at your event. We're not quite wrapped up yet with our listening sessions. What do you guys think? Do you have an open house coming up? Do you have a PTO meeting? Would it be okay for us to say a few words? Would you want us to speak? Would you prefer that we didn't and we just shared this information? I think that's up for discussion, but I just want to name that because I know each community kind of has their own way of engaging, and I don't want to take away the focus on, student and family community within building that community with their teachers and administrators at the school level. And so just being respectful that we're coming into their space, and likely the same goes for other orgs. I imagine that almost everyone's gonna want to hear from us and want the opportunity to share with us, but just engaging in a way that's mindful of those leaders in those spaces. That was my only other suggestion. But I think all of this is great. I'm really excited that we have a little more opportunity because we've learned so much already. It's actually exciting that we have a little bit more time than we thought we did to hear from even more people because it's just been a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah, really quick too, any board members that, may want to engage, and we'll have conversations more about it, but engage directly with schools or anything pertaining to PPSD, just please loop in the superintendent before we move along with that process. Dr. Williamson?
I also forgot to say, and this maybe goes without saying, that I think people will be looking more to the FACE office now since school has started, so that's probably is another opportunity to sort of connect through face with families as well. So, and that might also be useful connecting with the different schools.
President Stevens, I'm wondering if we can get a mailer sent out with the QR code to the survey. Like, I know that helped during campaign times. Just a thought, we don't have to talk about it.
Any other questions? Well, I think the board, I think the board, for the most part, feels supported as it pertains to this being extended a bit. Like I said, we'll have the council coming October 4th. AJ will not be joining us that session, so I just put that out there. But there will be 2 other representatives from the council coming, Sydney being one of them. But thank you all for your support with that, and we'll get the planning with each of you. Yes, Melissa, we will be looking to you pertaining to DWAC PAC and any other organizations, like Play, and making sure that we're respectful of those individual spaces as well. But yes, thank you so much for that. We will be moving over to item 6.2, TAP academic update. Dr. Dillon.
Thank you. I'll just wait for the presentation. It's the other one.
Second one.
Yeah, this one first. Thank you. Okay, for our update tonight on the TAP goals, what we will focus on is our progress toward TAP goals via our end of year student outcomes. So we can move to slide 2. What you have in front of you is the reading performance across the district using our iReady assessment tool. At the start of the year, only 15% of students were on or above grade level. By the end of the year, that more than doubled to 38%. Still a lot of work to do, but we did double the number of students who were on or above grade level. Every student subgroup showed growth, with the strongest gains among Asian and white students in this category. We have to acknowledge the fact that our differently abled students do remain significantly behind and have some reading gaps that we can see on this data. It's important to note where we see some gaps with our MLO students. This is proficiency data, so this is how they are performing in terms of overall proficiency. Our growth data, however, shows that this group of students is making a faster growth than other groups. And so what we see over time is that our MLO students do end up at the higher end of our proficiency levels compared to other students. So I just want to recognize this is proficiency data, not growth data. And so we need to understand both in order to understand what does this mean over time. It's also, I think, important to note that over 60% of our Black, Hispanic, and American Indian students performed at or near grade level, which was important to know in this reading data. Okay, if we could look at our math data. We also saw some strong movement in math. Again, I don't want to discount the fact that we still have significant work to do. But the share of our students on or above grade level grew from just 9% at the beginning of the year to 37% by June. That was a significant increase. It's more significant than we've seen in the past. And what we're seeing is that our middle school students are gaining in proficiency, and that's an area we've been really targeting. So our white and Asian students, again, led the growth with gains of more than 25 points this year. Our differently abled students did also have significant gaps, with fewer than 25% meeting grade level standards by the end of the year. Like our reading, I just want to also show that our MLL students on proficiency show that there are gaps. However, what we see with the growth data is that they are significantly closing those gaps faster. You just don't see that on this sheet because this is proficiency data. Okay. So if we could move on to, around 65% of our Black, Hispanic, and American Indian students perform near or at grade level in math. So I want to point out that as well. What you have here is how we're looking at the breakdown between how are our students in elementary performing compared to our students in middle schools. Because you've heard us say a number of times that we really want to work on improving our middle school outcomes. What we can tell from this is that our elementary students made strong progress. 48% ended the year at or above grade level. Our Black students in particular made significant gains at the elementary level. However, in the middle school, the challenge remains. What I'd like to say though is that although only 22% are at or above grade level by the end, that has increased significantly from 15% where we ended last year. Again, we also note that we have some work to do with closing gaps for our differently abled students. When we look at math. So the trend is very, very similar. Nearly half the students are now on or above grade level at elementary. So really excited to see that progress. With only 22% of middle schoolers meeting that mark. But again, that is significantly higher than we were last year, showing that the work that we're doing with our partners from CPEARL, the Rhode Island Department of Education, and our coaches is starting to work. What we saw at the beginning of the year before these pieces were put into place, we were not making these gains. But once these structures and systems were put in place, led by Michaela Keegan and the team from Teaching and Learning, we started to see gains where we had not seen them previously. So really proud to see that work. And if we could move on to reading, because I want to talk about what it is that students know and are able to do based upon this data, right? So the data tells percent proficient, but what does that really mean? What are the students working on? So on this slide, you can see the key up top where it talks about phonological awareness, phonics. So those are really the foundational high frequency words. Those are the foundational pieces. That's how students enter into decoding. That's how students are starting their journey with reading. Then we move on to our other areas which build up the comprehension of what they're reading. And that's the vocabulary, the comprehension, the literature, and the informational text. Please note that decreases on this slide are good. So typically when we see a decrease on the data slide, we're like, oh no. On this particular slide, it's a good thing to see a decrease. So what does this actually break down and mean? Our elementary students showed gains across phonological awareness, high frequency words, and comprehension. So not only are they beginning to decode at stronger levels, they're also starting to build up those skills for comprehension, which means understanding what they're reading. Our multilingual learners, there are still gaps in phonics, vocab, and informational text, as there are with our differently able. But again, it's important to compare this to our access testing, which shows that 44% are hitting their learning targets, and also with our growth rates, which shows higher than average growth rates for these groups. And in middle school, the needs are even a little bit more pressing as compared to elementary school. So we really need to work on comprehension, our students' ability to comprehend what they're reading. And this is particularly important for us to focus on vocabulary. The more vocabulary students have, the better and faster they can improve those comprehension skills. And so that is an area in terms of what students know and are able to do that we need to continue to work on as we move into the school year. Let's look at math. And again, we want to see a decrease in these numbers. We don't want to see an increase. The skills keys in terms of what students know and are able to do reflect numbers and operations, algebra, measurement and data, and geometry. And you might be asking yourselves, well, elementary students don't take geometry. No, but in each of our grades from kindergarten all the way up to high school, there are standards and skills that students use to build up to those high school geometry, measurement and data, and algebra skills. And so that we measure those as soon as the students begin to test in math. So what we are seeing are that students in elementary school are making gains in number sense and operations, which are really important to that foundational understanding of math. Our middle school students, they're continuing to struggle across all domains of algebra, geometry, measurement, and data. But I want to remind you of what I mentioned before. At about mid-year, we started to work with the Columbia University CPRO program, Rhode Island Department of Education. We're also working with Brown and Annenberg, and we have an amazing math grant through the Gates Foundation, where we're really targeting middle school math. And we had a very slow start in math in middle school. However, what we saw once we began those systems and structures was that those scores began to increase pretty rapidly, and we are continuing those structures into the next year. So just want to point that out. At this point, we still have more than 70% of our middle schoolers 2 or more years behind grade level. So although there's promise and promising practices, this continues to be an area where we need to really have all hands on deck and work continuously to improve it. Growth scores suggest, however, that the students are able to meet their annual growth target, which suggests to us that if we continue to work with these structures, we will see continued gains, and we will see middle school hopefully approaching what we're seeing at the elementary levels. Okay, let's talk about standards mastery and reading. Can we move to the next slide, please? Is this it? Okay, yep, sorry. Standards mastery in key ideas and details. This is really critical in terms of what the students are able to pull out of what they're reading. So these skills, what students know and are able to do, refer to citing textual evidence, determining a text central idea, determining the theme of a text, determining main idea, and retelling stories. So when we give a student a text, we're able to ask them what they understood from the text. They're able to point to different paragraphs in the text. They're able to cite. They're able to tell us what it means. So not only are they able to find the information, but then they can tell us what does that information mean, right? So really important skills for our students that if we can build these foundationally in grades 2 through 8, lead to high school and beyond success. So in elementary, about a quarter of the students are proficient, and another 1/3% are showing progress toward being proficient. In middle schools, however, the proficiency rate falls to 17%, with half of our students still at the beginning levels. Again, we are putting in new structures and systems, and this is also pointing to one of our strategies, which is the pre-K-8 strategy, where we know that the research shows that in PK-8 school students at the middle level, where they have that sense of community, where they have that longevity with their teachers and their staff, they're performing at much higher rates, and so we recognize that, and that's why the strategy for PK-8s is coming on. And then for our differently abled students, we do have a significant gap here as well that we know that we need to work on in terms of what are the interventions and strategies we're working so that students who are differently able, they're able to access their texts and their reading materials. Let's move on to PSAT and SAT readiness. So we have established a brand new system. This is new last year, where we're able to work with students on the assessment areas that are measured in PSAT and SAT. This includes information and ideas, craft and structure, expression of ideas, and standard English conventions. And it was really important to us because we didn't have a great measure of how, or a predictor of how students would do on PSAT, SAT. More importantly, we didn't know how to pinpoint as strongly as we could where the students were on each of these skills so that we could set up individualized learning opportunities for the students on their areas of need. So the PSAT, SAT readiness, they're internal SAT practice tests that we use to simulate the actual PSAT and SAT. It gives the teachers actionable data that they can use to then work with their students to improve the students' areas of strengths and needs. And we're able to give them different tests along the year and build out the plan that the teacher is using for that small group instruction, or even the interventionist might be using with the students. So we have only this 1 year of data, so we don't have year-over-year data to share yet. But we just wanted to provide this insight into how we are thinking about our high school students and how we are able to look at the skill sets that they need to be successful. And if we could move on to standards mastery and math. Standards mastery and math for the elementary and middle school, there are a number of priority domains. So what priority domains means that if the students are secure in knowing and being able to practice these skills, that by the time they hit high school, they're going to be successful in algebra and beyond. So each grade has different priority domains. I'm not going to read them to you, but they are there for you to review. And so what we're seeing here is that in math, 22% of the students are completely proficient on their priority domains, whereas another 36% are progressing or near on track. In middle school, only 9%, however, are at that same level, with 2/3 at the level of progressing or beginning. Our differently abled students are showing some areas of need in mathematics that we need to attend to, as you can see here, with fewer than 25% overall. And around, I mentioned this before, around 65%, you can't see it here, we didn't break down the demographics on this page, but around 65% of our Black, Hispanic, and American Indian students perform near or at grade level. So we're also looking at how each of our different demographic students are doing, and determining where we need to target some different attentions. If we could go on to the high school benchmarks. High school benchmarks, Algebra 1. This breaks down into the different standards, similar like we did to the elementary schools. These are the standards that are priority standards or most frequently assessed standards across the 3 areas of Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. So Algebra 1 is a relative strength with 60% of the students on the IM, which is our curriculum, illustrative math, demonstrating proficiency. But Geometry and Algebra 2 lag, with fewer than half the students meeting those same expectations. Our multilingual learners are 54% proficient in Algebra 1 and roughly 1/3 in Geometry and Algebra 2. Our differently able students, Algebra 1 results are stronger, but gaps widen as we move into the higher level Geometry and Algebra 2 courses.
Excuse me, is that the typo? You said 54. It's a typo on the slide. Just higher.
That is a typo. I'm sorry. 54. 54. I am so sorry. That should be a 54. They're doing well. Thanks for catching that. Yeah, no. I'm correct, right? That's typo.
It is, yeah.
When I read it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. No.
Oh, it is different, okay, so
Yep.
sorry, I was thinking of the last slide.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Yep, definitely won't. And if we could move on to our last slide. So what's the summary of the information and what are our next steps? So we're seeing accelerated growth in elementary grades, especially in reading fundamentals and number sense. Middle schools remain our greatest challenge. However, we are seeing promising practices result in increased gains and growth. Our multilingual learners continue to demonstrate strong growth. Our differently abled students continue to face the steepest gaps, especially in comprehension, vocabulary, algebra, and geometry. Our next steps are clear. We must continue strengthening support in middle schools. We must focus on higher level skills in reading and math to prepare students for secondary success. And we must double down on targeted interventions to close subgroup gaps. I think that was the last slide.
Thank you, Dr. Dillon. Is there any questions? Chairman Jones?
I'm just curious about the way they break up the demographics. That's beyond us, right?
What do you mean?
So it's like it says Black and or African American, but then we also have, African Americans that are descendants of slaves and Africans that are immigrants, because that data is more, and that data better represents the cumulative action of the school system than the aggregated data. I know that like some of the research I've read, the NAEP score specifically says when you look at a school's performance, you look at the African Americans that are descendants of slavery, and then the white population, because that's more cumulative over time. And then my second question is, what was it? I lost it actually.
I can answer the first. So our demographics are reported by families. So when families register and enroll their students, they determine how they want to have themselves classified. And so the demographic data that we have is based upon self-report from families.
Awesome, thank you. And my second question was, is there any like national data or like peer, data that we compare to see how, a district that has similar demographics as us, how are they performing? And because I'm specifically curious, like how we would compare nationally, because I know that nationally most places, did worse, right? So would you say that?
Yeah.
Would you characterize that we are outpacing most folks nationally?
Yes. If you look at when I presented, I don't remember the month, but we were at the Providence emergency.
March.
Yeah.
March.
Yes. In that presentation, I shared with you a link to how Providence and Rhode Island is doing in terms of closing gaps from COVID. And we're also seeing additional reports come out. So you can go back to that one for that report, but we're also seeing additional reports that suggest that Providence and Rhode Island as a whole are increasing and improving at faster rates and closing gaps at faster rates than other similar districts and states. It's important to note too, if you recall last year, Providence was the only district in the state that increased on ELA for RICAS and SAT and math for RICAS and SAT, while also decreasing its chronic absenteeism. So that's significant. And third, the Council of Great City Schools have a number of reports that I'm sure AJ and Cindy would be happy to share that break down how urban districts across the country of similar size performance compared to Providence.
Awesome, thank you.
Chairman Mabel?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have questions regarding testing. Can you talk a little bit about who's taking the SAT? Is it a freshman, sophomore, junior, seniors? And also like how, I know you mentioned that you guys delegate a lot of this responsibility on teachers. Let some teachers have to deal with 10 of, a lot of students basically. And how do they track progress for the students?
Sure. So in terms of the SAT, the majority of students take the SAT in their junior year. Some do take it in their senior year if they weren't able to test or if they want to retest. SAT is a state assessment, and so all of our students are given the SAT in Providence. In other states, that's not true. In other states, it's not a state assessment, right? But here in Providence, SAT is a state assessment. In terms of our teachers, there are a couple of ways that they track progress. One is their own grade book in terms of what's going on in their classroom in terms of assignments. But they also have access to our Power BI data system where they can see how their students are performing across a wide variety of state or local assessments. So they can see what skills and standards that each of their students have mastered. They can see how their students are doing in terms of their attendance, They don't have to enter any of that, but they have access to see it so that they know if they want to do if they need to do intervention, or if they want to do particular groupings in their class. They can use this data to be able to do that. And then in terms of the teachers, every teacher has the same curriculum by grade, so the teachers work together during common planning time to come together, to plan together, to look at data together, and to make decisions together. Did I miss any part of your question?
No, I think important thing is country for students, I see like
Turn your mic on, Jim.
important is country, these colleges, even Ivy League colleges, a lot of students hope to go to. They require SATs, and SATs provide our students good opportunities, scholarships. I think recommending for the district really, you think about make SAT readiness programs where we can start with freshmen and sophomores. Our students do great.
Yes.
I was one of the students, our students that I work with, they come from another country, they get here, they want to speak English because I think that mathematics is first, So one of the things they struggle is when they see the SAT result is more writing and English. I think that if we really can have some after school programs where we will students are on the age, I think that's going to increase the grade. Because it's very hard. I remember I took the SAT back in school. I was very disappointed. I was glad I didn't it. I was thinking that I didn't. But I think that is competition and people often to us.
Well, I think you'll be excited by my answer. So we recognize the exact same thing. And so the teaching and learning department led by Dr. Keegan put together a SAT and PSAT readiness program for all of our schools. And so as part of that program, we're also partnering with the Annenberg Institute, Brown, and Gates to provide our students with PSAT and SAT readiness during school, because we know not all students can come after school. We have additional programs after school, but we want to make sure we're reaching all students. We've also partnered with Khan Academy on PSAT and SAT readiness. And so we're able to use our SAT and PSAT readiness data in order to build the supports and understand where each of our students are, both in mathematics and in reading and writing. And so we use that data to target the students and to help them to improve significantly. Also, and not related to SAT, but also related to students who might want to go on to a 4-year or 2-year college, we're also increasing the number of AP courses and AP assessments across the district. And we're seeing increases in student performance on those AP assessments. I believe, and I really promote the idea that the higher the expectations that you set, the higher the bar students reach, right? And so it's really important for us to offer support in terms of PSAT and SAT readiness, but also in terms of enriching curriculum and opportunities for students to excel, such as AP courses. You're welcome.
Dr. Williamson?
Yeah, thank you very much for that report. It's very informative. I just had a couple of questions. The first question actually was a follow-up to the question that Committee Member Jones asked, which is, so when people are self-identifying when they initially enroll, that we're using basically the standard census categories that the Office of Management and Budget establishes. That's what we're, but we do, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I was talking with somebody in the base office, and I think they said we do collect other information, like if another language is spoken at home, that sort of thing. So maybe we could use those to cross-reference, to sort of maybe get into a little bit more of the fine detail that he was talking about, just to kind of, just not necessarily for every single thing, but once, like maybe once in a while as a check-in, just sort of, yeah.
So Part of the demographics that we collect is language. And so that is definitely demographics that we can collect. And one of the reasons that we do that is because if a family member indicates that a different language is spoken at home, we also have measures to determine whether or not a student might require MLL supports, and then we offer those supports and services to families. So we do collect that information, and that information is part of our data system for sure.
And in Power BI, it would be
Power
simple
BI.
enough to use that as a filter
Yes,
to see, okay, let's look at people who identify as Black, African American, who are come from an immigrant family versus not.
yes, we can
So,
do some of those.
and for each.
We have immigrant
racial and
status, we have homeless status,
Yeah.
we have a variety of different areas. If I broke down the data into every single area, we would
It'd be a bit overwhelming.
Yes.
So that's why I'm saying it's not necessarily something you would do for everything, but maybe it's a sort of large scale check-in to
Correct.
see how we're doing.
Correct, and our branching line system that we now have in terms of early warning system and tracking student progress allows us to see that as well. So we can see trends, we can determine if there are particular groups of students that we need to work with in a different way or outreach in a different way.
Right.
Absolutely. Our data team is absolutely phenomenal, and anything that we need support with analyzing, they're always readily available to support us with that.
The other question, I just had a couple of questions, and one was just a clarification. You mentioned something about that you're one of the measures for the iReady math was students' geometry ability, but you're saying elementary students don't. So could you speak a little bit more about what
No,
they're
I
measuring?
said, I think it's fun. I said that they do, right? And I said you might have a question in terms of why do we have geometry if there is a domain for elementary? So there's something called a coherence map. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but we're able to look at the math standards up and down from kindergarten all the way up to Algebra 2. And there's the reason why it's called coherence is because there are skills and standards that build on each other. And so you can actually diagnose which skill or standard might be missing, and that's why a student is struggling in a particular area. And then you can go in and pinpoint that, and do some high dosage tutoring on that one area, and then support a student. And so we can do that across all the domains from kindergarten all the way up through Algebra 2. And so a lot of times people think of geometry as a high school standard course, but it really, there are standards that go all the way down to kindergarten that build those geometry skills in a coherent way, all the way from kindergarten all the way up.
But they do or don't actually incorporate geography. They do
Geometry?
incorporate a geometry rather
Yes.
in the lessons.
Oh, yes.
Okay, all right.
Oh, yes.
That was just confusing.
Yes.
So I just wanted to
I
make.
apologize.
Okay, no, no.
Absolutely. All of those domains are integrated throughout elementary so that we're building those skills so that when they get to the high level courses, they
Okay.
have those skills.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm sorry. I think I misunderstood.
No, it's okay. I talk
So-
fast sometimes.
Yeah, there's a lot here as well. The other question I had was about the relationship between the PSATs and the SATs. So PSATs are the practice tests for the SATs.
In a
sense,
way,
right?
yeah,
But
in
like
a
we're doing
sense.
prep for both, like.
We prep for both because it's not really about the assessment. So people think about assessments and they think about them for the score.
Mhm.
We think about them in terms of the information that they give us because they tell us of these skills in terms of what students know and are able to do. These are the ones that they're strong and they have solidly mastered, and these are the ones that we need to dig in more and support them with. That's why these assessments are so critical to us, because without this information, we can't pinpoint and support students to grow and to become proficient or master the standards and skills that they're going to need to be successful long-term.
And just one last thing, the gap between, so my impression is that the gap between the elementary performance and the middle school performance is basically that we put in new systems and
Yes.
that those are working
Yes,
in the elementary level, but that we have a cohort of students who maybe didn't get quite that same level of preparation, but we're kind of have to go back and do some remediation. But
Yes, I definitely would agree with, I would agree with that, but we've also historically seen drops over time in the middle school. That's historically been the case in Providence. And so, looking at how we've structured our schedules, now we have, what I need blocks, some schools call them discovery blocks. We have these in all middle schools. We didn't have those structures before in every single middle school. So we also recognized some structural issues that we needed to address, and also some supports that we needed to add on, and think about differently. And Francesca Salvador, our math director, she's been phenomenal in being the liaison for that math work, and Gail Tella in literacy has been really supportive in helping us think about that for our literacy components. And of course, we're partnering strongly with the MLL department, but we've recognized and acknowledged that we had some structural issues in terms of schedules and how we were able to reach students that we needed to address.
Actually, I'm sorry, I have one other really quick question, which is the iReady system. How long, is that new, or how long have we been?
It's relatively new, so we've had it 2 years for the literacy, and we've had it, we had some schools pilot, so this is pilot year 2. Well, year 2 for some of the schools that piloted, but year 1 for the majority of our schools with that. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry I asked a lot.
No, it's okay, I don't mind talking, I could talk about this all day.
Vice President Newman?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I could too. I don't know as much as you do, but I'm very interested in it. I just wanted to, plus one about any way we can like de-aggregate data around race, particularly around Black Americans. I think just over the last 2 decades or so, probably more than, like, there was an explosion of like Black pride in like the 60s, right? And it happened again, which is beautiful, but more and more people identifying as Black. And while that's beautiful, it also tends to erase the African Americans who are descendants of slaves, who, like multilingual learners and like our refugee families, need specific supports. Families from descendants of slaves who survived Jim Crow here in this country need specific supports as well. And I think that when everyone, as much as I love that folks are identifying as Black, I think it makes things muddy when we talk about the needs of students. And yeah, so just want to kind of plus one that and figure out ways to, I think that's a really important category of people to be looking at, given the social determinants of health and the way that our African Americans, descendants of slaves, fare health-wise, nationally, historically. Yeah, I wanted to ask a question. Do we, Common Core, that's what we,
Those are our standards.
those are the standards?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. I asked that question because I know like programs, like after-school programs and stuff like that, I think we would want to be thinking about ways to incorporate more like literacy and math and things like that into our, like, say, art curriculums or sports curriculums. And I just wanted to make sure that Common Core was like still the sort of universal like standards that are used. Did you want to respond to that, Dr. Dillon?
I did, because I'm excited about another thing I want to share. So I completely agree with you. And we work very closely with BASE and our community organizations and partners for the summer work, because we saw that there was a disconnect between how they were understanding or measuring student outcomes. And so we started to layer in and look at what are the standards that their programs might be measuring, and how might we look at that and measure that, so we know that what our partners are doing with our students are actually resulting in positive student outcomes as well. So I'm so happy to jump on board with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the part that lit me up was the vocabulary part. It's like teaching hip hop, like I teach MCs how to write. Vocabulary is the core of what we do. So the core, like you can't rap unless you know how to say something. And you can't be a good rapper unless you know how to say a lot of things. You know what I mean? Like you have to be a master of a language to be a good rapper. And so I'm just thinking about ways that not only I and we at my organization, but other, especially like in hip hop arts, can be taking the literacy on and be helping PPSD in all of our schools to like understand like what should students know by ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and let's make sure that they are core to the songs that we're creating. You know what I mean? And like, so just thinking about that, and I wanted to double check that Common Core was still big dog out here. It is. Okay,
It
cool.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
And there's so much evidence-based to show that students who have gaps early on tend to have a smaller vocabulary than students who are on grade level. And so the earlier we can get those vocabulary words built up for our youngest learners, the more they're going to excel with each grade that they progress.
Nice. Okay, awesome. Just two more things. I was thinking about Dr. Dillon, so targeted intervention, and correct me if I'm wrong, when that term's used, that's specific, like mostly academic, right?
Yes.
Like, so.
Well, we have
learning-
social and emotional stuff.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So social, emotional, and then academic.
Yes.
Is there also, I'm wondering about just like, you might do this already, so forgive me if you do, but I am thinking about like emergency rooms, right? When a patient comes in, you know, like they need help.
Yes.
And so they're kind of like testing for everything and they get like a triage team and to say, okay, like what are the things?
Yeah.
And I was just wondering about like, how does, if at all, the school social worker play into, you know, if a young person's flaming out of math,
Mhm.
where is the conversation about food security, housing security, as well as the academics? Like, is there a team that comes together with that person?
There is. It's so exciting. I love these questions because, yes, so we have reestablished our multi-tier system of support teams. And we are also working closely with our special education teams as well. And now we have our common planning time teams, is sort of as a well-oiled process. So if you think about it in terms of tiers, our common planning time are our teachers, and they come together and they might be having a conversation about, let's look at the data for grade 4. Oh my goodness, we're seeing this trend with the student, it's a concern. Let's have our MTSS team look at it a little bit more closely. So different people are added to the team, social worker, guidance counselor perhaps, special educator, and they're like, oh, okay, let's look at what's happening, let's do some outreach, let's figure this out. They put in some intervention, see if it works. If it doesn't work after a long period of, not a long period, I'm sorry, after a short period of time, they might come back together and say, hey, we need even more intensive interventions, and then they might call in some additional supports, or they might even use some community partner programs that we might have, especially if it's around some social, emotional, or well-being issues.
Thank you so much. And my last question is around the PK to 8 school model. So I know I've gotten some questions and heard in our community listening sessions, some feedback or questions around. So when students, so traditional middle school models, that's when students start switching classes, right? They start switching classes, moving around.
Yes.
I know it can be exciting to do that. It can be catastrophic depending on it. You know, I'm just wondering, like, with our PK to 8 models, are students going to be spending more time in their, like, say, like original homerooms or classes, or are they going to still be switching? And do you see a benefit on either side of that?
Sure. So the way that we've set up the middle school side of the house is something called teams. So a team of students, say 100 students, will have the same 4 teachers. So those 4 teachers will get to know those students very, very carefully and closely. And so when they meet together as a team to talk about what's going on with the students, they all have the same students and they're talking about them. Now the students will go off team to go to things like world language or PE or art, but when they're in their academics, they're going to be with that 4 team of teachers who will get to know them very well.
Got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, Board Member Hughes? I'll go to you right after.
Thank you. First of all, I want to share in the enthusiasm this evening. This is really exciting. I also want to commend you, Dr. Dillon, for connecting us back to the language that we're using in our listening sessions and in our training with Council of Great City Schools, that we are always trying to find out what do students know, what are students able to do, and really using all of this information to look carefully about that. So thank you for this presentation. I also really appreciated in the beginning slides, I think it was mostly around the iReady information that we saw, getting to watch sort of the at or above the 1 year below and the 2 years below. It took me a few minutes when I was reviewing this at home. But when you're going through slides, I think it's like slides 2 through 5 or so. While it's super helpful to look at the at or above, you want that number going from beginning of year to end of year. You want that percentage to increase. But then you also want the 1 year below number to go down and the 2 years below to go down. So basically, when we're looking at the green slide, we want to increase the percentage of students that are at or above grade level, and we want students that are 1 year below to go down and 2 years below to go down. Exactly. Now, there were a few exceptions, and I don't want to get into the weeds here, but I don't think you touched on this in your presentation. I just want to highlight that it was encouraging to see that for the most part, there was progress across the board, across subgroups of both in reading and math, elementary and middle school. I'm just so encouraged to see that we as a district are moving in a wonderful direction. There's so much more work to do, of course. And I also wanted to address, I think a number of my colleagues have already kind of touched on, there are a lot of assessments and people talk about like, is there too much testing? Is there a lot of assessments? But I think without some of these different pieces, we wouldn't know all of this great information and you wouldn't be able to target the information in the way that you're doing it. And so obviously there's always room for a discussion on that as well, but I wanted to highlight that because I think that's a topic we've heard here from community members in the past and maybe in our listening sessions as well.
Yes.
And then finally, I wanted to highlight from the parent perspective how helpful it is as you collect that data that there have also been improvements in communication to families. A common long complaint that we've heard from families here at the school board and in other spaces at the school level, at PAC, and other places, even in our community forums back in 2019, as we headed into our intervention, we heard that one of the stressors for families was that they just didn't know where their kids were until it was too late to do much about it. And you've talked a lot this evening about how these skills scaffold upon one another and how important it is to reach kids when they're young, because for example, like Dr. Williamson's question around the geometry, that there are things a student needs to be learning in 2nd grade and then in 7th grade, so that when they take geometry in say 10th grade or whenever it is that they're taking it, that they're ready to tackle that topic as a whole. And so I just want to commend and encourage continued communication with families. I know that, having parent-teacher conferences can be helpful. You just mentioned to Vice President Newman's question around team teaching at the middle school level. I know that some of our middle schools in the past had piloted having team conferences for families that can be super helpful as well to help give families a clearer picture of where their student is overall. And I think that there's something so valuable in knowing that a student is not just kind of floating around from adult to adult, that there are those adult relationships and interactions that really get to know our students well to best support them in their academic and social and emotional wellness. So I'm not sure I have a ton of questions because there's just so much in here to look at, but I just wanted to share all of those points to say, like, I think that this is super helpful. I think we can keep, seeing this type of presentation over time. And thank you for being here and sharing your enthusiasm. And thank you for shouting out members of your team too. I think that's really special to hear. Like, I know one of them is really,
Well, we all have to work together. We can't do any of this work as an island.
excellent stuff. Thank you so much.
Really quick, Chairman Jones, I'm so sorry. I just want to make sure each member gets to speak first before we ask another question. Secretary Fonts and then Chairman Jones.
So as part, we've done this at a school that I worked at. Speaking of parent-teacher conferences, have you guys ever considered student-led conferences? They give a different perspective. They take the emphasis off of grades and it focuses more on the growth, and the student kind of takes accountability and ownership of their learning, and they can share with families okay, this is my goals for this quarter. this is the work I did to get there, this is what I want to work on for next quarter. So just curious if you, have you implemented any of that, and how is that going?
Sure. Some of our schools have implemented it. We have a requirement called school improvement teams. And the school improvement teams are instructional leadership teams, and they come together at each of the schools to determine how they will do the conferences, how they will communicate with parents, a variety of different instructional and family-facing decisions come from those teams. Many of the teams are starting to investigate student-led conferences because they've heard from some of their peers who are doing them in schools across Providence, that they are successful for exactly the reasons that you noted. So although it is not a practice in all of our schools, some of our schools have piloted it and other schools are investigating it.
Chairman Jones?
Yeah, so I have a family member who's in education, and she had said something to me that I'd never heard. It was that by a certain age that kids are supposed to have read to them or read like 10,000 hours or books or something like that. Is there any like specific strategies? I know if my mom was like, had known that, like my mom, she was like, oh, I just need to put them in sports, right? That was like, okay, I'm gonna keep them busy, I'm putting them in sports, right? But if she had known, no, like you need to be reading with them, right? I think she would have made that change. So I'm curious if there's any strategies to kind of work with parents and families to try to put in place, things that are happening inside of their home that can be useful with the district and support.
Sure, there are a few things. One, each of our schools through their Title I work have parent compacts, and part of that compact is to educate parents on different strategies that lead to student academic and social emotional well-being and success. And some of that is around reading and vocabulary. So that is one. Another area that BASE has taken on are parent university and parent ambassadors who have different trainings and outreach to the schools around strategies that families can take and those that benefit their students. We're also trying to build better communications for families, such as our parents, where we can get information out in a way that's more accessible to families about strategies and supports that are available or things that they can do in the home that are helpful. And every time that we have a break, we send out those strategies and reminders. So I think it is critical. I think we could do more, but yes, those pieces are in place. And our PTOs have also been great and strong partners in that.
Yeah, and I think that, that could be a good place for the board to support. We're connected to a lot of families, and if there's ever resources or tools that, we can help get to the community, just let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Winston?
I just had a very quick, I just wanted to second everything that Committee Member Hughes said, and I did want to add one little note though.
Sure.
That I also really appreciate breaking things down by at level, a year behind and 2 years behind. That for some things I would assume that as you get the people 2 years behind speed,
Yes.
1 year behind number might actually go up.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
So we have
Yes.
we have in our system, we're able to see the movement and how many students are moving up or down each level. We look at that very carefully, and we meet with the principals and we show them their movement by school and by grade, because that movement is key. It's what we need to know, and we need to be able to see why that's happening. And then we measure that and we compare it to things like, okay, let's look at the absenteeism rate in this group that we're seeing move in this direction or that direction. One of the things that we have seen is that students who were historically chronically absent, if they are in school and not chronically absent for 2 years, we're actually seeing them move in the right direction. So I just really want to emphasize how we're looking at this information and how being present in school and the supports that we're putting in place in terms of a strong, high-quality curriculum, Tier 1 instruction, and then interventions for those that need it, really also depend on students being present for the academics.
I also just wanted to, I really appreciated your response to to, Vice President, I'm getting on this, I don't know, but President Newman's questions, and I think I would like to see us normalize talking about, we talk about the social determinants of health, I'd like to see normalizing talking about the social determinants of education, so that we need to be aware of the whole picture, so, and I appreciate the response. Thank you.
Any other questions? I actually, it's funny, I have a hard stop, but I do have some questions before I leave. I'll get fired from my job, so I want to definitely be aware of that. But what I will say is, so we all know we are still in turnaround, which is key. My computer died on me, so I'm sad. I'm so sad. I was taking notes. But how will we know whether, spring iReady gains translate over into the broadcast efficiency? Like, how should we?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are a couple of ways of doing that. One, our friends at Council of Great City Schools and iReady actually create reports that help us to understand the correlative data between performance on iReady end of year and RICAS. So we will definitely be looking at that as it comes. We will not see our RICAS scores until likely mid-October this year. So it will take us a while to know that. We're also looking at how it's looking in terms of correlation in Massachusetts, because Massachusetts has been using iReady longer than we have. And MCAS is essentially RICAS for Massachusetts. So we're able to use their data as well. But I appreciate that question, and it is something that we are carefully following as well.
This is totally not even pertaining to this, but do we have an enrollment dashboard?
Yes.
And does the council work with us on that or no?
The council does not work on it with us. We have been doing all of our dashboard work in-house and with support of RIDE. If they have feedback, we would be happy to have that conversation, but no, we don't work directly with them.
Can you send that to me? Not right now, but in the near future.
What's in our dashboard?
Yes, yeah. Okay. What was I gonna say? Will we have interim benchmarks to monitor this alignment that we're?
Yes. So we have the iReady benchmarks we do 3 times a year. And we've also added in a writing benchmark because we found that was one of our gap areas. So we have the writing benchmark as well. Teachers on a regular basis use iReady to do standards mastery to check in on their students. So that occurs on a regular basis, but the benchmarks are just 3 times a year.
And Vice President Newman might have said this, but I just want to probably just get clarification for my question. Do we have the staffing, coaching, intervention resources necessary to move from the incremental growth to sustained proficiency?
I believe we're on the right track for that. We were able to secure some competitive grants. We lost funding once the ESSER money that we received during COVID. And so we've been working to secure some additional grants that are competitive grants to increase the number of instructional support leaders that we have that can go out to the schools. We've also evaluated our staffing model to determine the importance and critical aspect of interventionists in each of our schools. And we have looked at our schools based upon their status. Are they comprehensive school improvement status, CSI, or are they our typical schools? And so based upon that, we have determined the level of need and support in a differentiated way to meet the needs of the students in those buildings.
It's all about money. We need more money. So, but absolutely, truly want to thank you for that. Makes a lot of sense. And is there any other board members that have any questions? All right. If not, thank you for that presentation. We do, in fact, have another presentation, which is 6.3 Summer Learning Academic Update. I am going to turn the floor first to Vice President Newman, who will assume my seat, and then after she will direct us further. But thank you all.
Thanks, Michaela. We have a new driver.
You should be afraid.
For those of you that haven't met, this is Dr. Michaela Keegan. She is our Executive Director for Teaching and Learning. She is integral to a lot of the data that we're seeing tonight, so I just want to acknowledge that. We can move to the first slide. So this is an exciting presentation. It's not as meaty, so, but it's really important to us. We know that students who aren't engaged over the summer can have summer learning slides, so we wanted to provide programs in-house and then also partner with our external partners to provide different summer programs. So this initial program right here is our internal summer learning program for elementary schools. It was offered at Pleasant View Academy for all of our students, rising first through fourth graders. We had 317 students register, and of that, 217 actually attended. The focus here was on building the academic skills necessary to move to the next grade level. So we tried to decrease any barriers that families might have to sending students there. So we provided transportation, breakfast, lunch, and we also provided some hands-on and play activities during the day so that it was learning and fun at the same time to keep our students engaged. Our other program that we offered in-house was our C.D. Perch Middle School program. This is a program that we offer annually, but this year we did it a little bit differently. We had two groups of students. The first group were 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and the second group was a smaller group. It was students who were in 8th grade rising into 9th grade for Algebra 1. They built underwater remotely operated vehicles, and they applied algebra and engineering skills in order to be able to do this. So they really had to know and understand how to apply those algebra skills and engineering. They practiced collaboration, problem solving, and technical skills, and they had support from our partners at Electric Boat and RoboNation. At the end of their sessions, they competed in obstacle courses, and they were able to demonstrate their technical skills and their ability to operate as a team. So it was really exciting. I love this program, and the students were super engaged. We also offered our high school credit recovery. This is a more typical program that most districts across the country offer. This was for, however, any 10th, 11th, or 12th grader who was needed to make up credits so that they could remain on track for graduation. During the course of the summer, 61 additional seniors were able to achieve the credits that they needed to graduate. And so we held a graduation ceremony called the Rainbow Ceremony because students were from all different schools at PCTA. Students attended both in person for the sessions and also virtually. So students were able to be able to participate in a way that made the most sense to them. Then we had our partnership programs. They were different organizations across the city, Boys and Girls Club, Generation Teach, Inspiring Minds, Down City Design, New Urban Arts, PASA, Federal Hill House, and Camp Rise. Over 680 students engaged in these programs. And the partnerships worked with us in terms of thinking about what outcomes we might want to know about academically, as well as the fun opportunities they were offering to students. So it's really high quality learning. So in terms of attendance, in our elementary program, 253 students attended across the programs out of the 317 registered, and 85 of those had 90% attendance. In C-Perch, we had one session had 49 students. That was the one that was 6, 7, 8 combined, and the rising to 9th grade Algebra 1 had 15 students. And these students attended almost every single day, every student. It was amazing. So it shows you how students are engaged in high quality learning and really feel empowered that they attend on a regular basis, even in the summer. So it was exciting to see that. And then in our partner programs, we filled 681 out of 763 seats with 82% daily attendance. So that was amazing as well. This slide shows our rising third grade ELA outcomes. So we also wanted to measure what students knew and were able to do in terms of English language arts in the summer. And our students showed growth in identifying main topics and recounting stories, which are higher end standards than entering foundational standards. Their gains were evident across all the demographic groups. Some groups, particularly special education and English learners, did show some lower post-assessment, but still showed growth. Overall, averages dipped slightly between pre and post for third grade, and so we now know what we need to focus on immediately in the fall. Rising fourth grade English language ELA outcomes. The students showed clear literacy progress. Across the groups, the performance improved from pre and post, unlike third grade, with notable gains in recounting stories and determining main ideas. We did have some lower proficiency gaps for our students with disabilities and English language learners, but progress. This data reinforces the idea and value of summer intervention, but also the need for additional supports during the school year in these areas. For math, the math outcomes are a summer success story. Our rising first graders grew from 66% to 82% proficiency in the skills that we worked on with them, while fourth graders grew from 29% to 70% in their skills. Students with disabilities showed strong progress across the grades. Although there were some gaps in most grades, in first grade there were actually no gaps. And so we know the earlier that we can intervene and close gaps, the longer term progress that we can anticipate. So excited about that. Our multilingual learners made gains across all grade levels, with grades 1, 2, and 4 outpacing their peers. And this is consistent across iReady. Next slide. Very hard to see here, but you asked, are we still using Common Core? So these are the Common Core standards in math that we were looking at. And our summer instruction was tightly aligned to these priority math standards. From foundational counting to operations in K2 to fractions and geometry in grades 3 to 4, the students were focused on these areas so that they could ensure continuity into the school year. And so we were able to provide and ensure a bridge from the summer into the grade level learning expectations for the school year. In grade 11 in our C-Perch, this was hands-on STEM. So our students were nearly double from the beginning at 33% to 65% by the end. Multilingual learners in particular showed remarkable growth, with ninth grade jumping from single-digit pre-test to over 70% post-test. The results for students with disabilities were mixed. However, this demonstrates our need for continued support in STEM contexts for our differently abled students. And then algebra readiness and science standards are outlined here. Again, this is our next generation science standards and our Common Core math standards. This program built algebra readiness and science skills. Students were engaged with functions, equations, and geometry standards that directly prepare them for high school math. At the same time, they practice engineering design and core science standards, from forces and energy to earth systems. The kind of interdisciplinary learning positioned the middle school students for a smoother transition into rigorous high school coursework and upper middle school science and math classes. Okay. Here it is. Okay, I'm just good. So our credit recovery outcomes as of the 17th of August, 980 credits have been recaptured by 535 students. That 59 students who graduated is now 61. We're continuing to increase. Students are continuing their coursework in Edgenuity, and they had until today to complete their classes. So I don't have the final number, but we're making great progress. And by the end of August, there's a potential to recapture an additional 189. So we'll know this week whether or not we were able to recapture those 189 credits for successful completion.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dillon and Michaela. What was your last name again?
Keegan.
Keegan. Yeah. Thank you so much. Remarkable. Wow. Board members, any questions?
Commenting.
Thank you.
So I attended the summer Wembley graduation, and I want to thank the principal of the students. I know when I was a kid, when I came to this country, when I was trying to take some of the corporate classes, it's very hard. It's very hard. Sometimes you hear your students, they got a job. Some of them did, they playing soccer. For the students to put themselves throughout the summer and to complete this credit, I'm very, very proud of them. And also for our teachers and administrators, you guys also did an amazing job as well. So thank you. And also I have another question. Also in the comments. So this morning I want to thank also our community partner and all organizations that work with the districts with us this summer. We really are thankful, and also really an opportunity to engage our students. This morning I was at the Federal Hill House graduations. 3 until from Hope High School graduated. Some of them just came to the country. This was the first job in the country, and they got a chance to get some certification on food safety, daycare, and different things they created after when the internship ended. They created the resume, cover letters, and they can even use them as a recommendation. And also, we had all the organizations where they might also come to Camp Price. I was invited to go to Camp Price and visit the programming. It was very engaging. And even when the summer program ended, they continued to engage with our kids. I believe me and Corey went to speak there as guest speakers when they had a career day. I'm just very proud, and thank you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Hangable. Any other questions, Secretary Foss?
No question, but just wanna elevate that although these programs were for academic gain, like I just wanna recognize that one, you're allowing students to be taken care of and safe so families can still work and do what they have to do to take care of their families. So kudos to you for like engaging it looks like almost 1,000 students this summer. And then, yeah, also incorporating like that play piece. Like you said that you made time for them to be outside, made time for them to play and experience. So it doesn't feel like they're just losing their summer to academics, even though it's important. It didn't have to feel like summer school, and I just am excited to see that we care enough about that to make sure it's incorporated. So thank you guys and your team and our, like Najee said, our partners. It's great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Other folks, questions, comments for our team? Okay. Oh, we have one, Ms. Hughes.
Just super quickly, I'm so excited to see this connection to actual student outcomes in the school year from our summer programs, because I think that's something that we feel as a community or like families, like that by engaging students and getting them excited about learning, that like hopefully that's going to connect into the year. But to be actually able to track some of that data and look at the specific standards that are being addressed, and even building those community partnership things too, because it's one thing to do that with our internal programs and quite a different effort to coordinate with various community partners. So this is a really exciting thing to see. And so thank you. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
I'm sorry, one last thing. From these kind of presentations, and I'm sure the data you'll get from now until November, I know I'm assuming the district will kind of come up with their own goals as we're going to synthesize and do the same. So I'm curious to see if what we heard from community lines up in any way with the district. don't share your goals with us. We don't want to be guided, but like, it will be fun to kind of see where we land from community in the district.
All right. I think that wraps that up. But, Dr. Dillon, Michaela Keegan, thank you so much. And I just want to say, I think there's this myth that you hear in communities sometimes, like, oh, educators get the summer off. And it's just like, it couldn't be further from the truth. You know, it couldn't be further from the truth. And just, I mean, just the effort that it takes to like go the whole school year and be like thinking about thoughtful partnerships and testing and making sure not only students and families, but whole school communities have what they need, but then to also like plug away in the summer to do that when like all the elements, including the season and the weather and, you know, just transition, it's being a transitional time, but to lock in with students and families, community partners and neighbors. I know what it's like just to run a 5-6 week summer program, never mind run multiple across the district, and to be doing the pre and post testing, which is like a huge commitment. And so, yeah, we just want to commend you. I want to commend you. Like it's remarkable, and no one can say Providence isn't like really going after the goals that we set out. So I'm really proud. So thank you so much. Absolutely. Oh, Maria, go ahead, Maria.
Yes, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you very much to all my colleagues that who work so hard for the listening session. Even if they don't have to show up, they want to show up with, and I want to express my special thank you to Michelle because all the time she was in charge to remember to let the people know what has going on and everything, and was very good job that she did. Thank you, Michelle. Really appreciate it because you all the time was not for only for me, for everybody saying today this happened, this not gonna be, and was so excited to have you like my secretary.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dillon. Thank you, Michaela Keegan. Really not just for the summer learning presentation, but for the top presentation that you gave before, board members for all of your thoughtful comments and questions tonight. You know, we all have families and things that we have going on, but I just continue to be inspired by the conversations that we have and the commitment to stay till the end. Thank you, Sarah, for being here and always just, yeah, you know, not only like someone who got our back, but also just like a great mentor as well. So thank you so, so much. Absolutely. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to close.
All right. Second, everyone in favor say aye. Aye. All right, and that's that. Martha, thank you so much. Thank you.
Motion appreciated. Motion because he left. You got to. Yeah. Good thing you meant it. You said it. So I would have done that. Thank you. Have a good night. Yes.